Newsmax TV continuing coverage of Prime Minister Netanyahu's address to a joint session of Congress makes way now for MidPoint with Ed Berliner. Ed, we welcome you into the anchor desk. It is good to have you here. I must tell you.
We never get a chance to see each other face to face.
Well, occasionally on big events such as election night, and this is another major event, Ed.
Sure is.
And I was taken by the Prime Minister making reference because in the rear of the Capitol are history's great lawgivers. Most of the images are in profile. The one image looking directly in the chamber with the full visage is that of Moses. And certainly the Prime Minister made great use of American political oratorical techniques today in this joint address to Congress.
I think he also got through exactly what he wanted to do. A lot of the points we already knew. He hit them all very well, and I thought it was rather interesting that, of course, he started things out by making sure that he paid tribute to the president and made sure that he put all the politics behind him just as quickly as possible, and to make this more about Iran, Israel, and the nuclear option as well. J.D., thanks so much, my friend. We'll talk to you again real soon. Let's go ahead and let's move on, because I guess we have some guests that we're going to offer in right now for MidPoint. Pleasure to welcome back into MidPoint right now the Global Initiative on Civil Society Conflict Director. You've been listening to him here for a little while. Retired U.S. Army Colonel Derek Harvey is still with us. And also our guest who now joins us, the current representative for Michigan's 7th Congressional District. He was there when Benjamin Netanyahu delivered his address to Congress, a Republican Congressman Tim Walberg. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here.
Good to be with you.
Thank you.
Congressman, we're going to start with you because you just came from the floor. Rousing applause for Benjamin Netanyahu at many points. Do you believe that he made his point succinctly, that he made the point, and that the American people and the president are going to get the message?
Well, I can't speak for the president. I can't speak for all the American people. But I think Congress, if we sat there and seriously listened without politics in our mind, we heard a man of great moral clarity make the statement succinct to the point that it is time for us to understand the danger that is there and stand together as people who love freedom and fight against the tyranny that threatens not only to wipe Israel off the map, but wipe America off the map if they're given the opportunity.
Do you think that the Prime Minister made certain that everything was, I guess, kept at a very civil level politically here? Because before this speech, there was talk that Israel and the United States, that there was a schism between them, and that this was going to be all the wrong thing for the Prime Minister to do. Do you think that at least when he started things out, he did it right, and he did not lend any more credence to the fact that the two countries might be warring, if you will?
Well, absolutely. I mean, he was magnanimous to a fault. He was a gentleman. He was a true leader. He understood the priorities, and that was not to fight the political battles. That was not to fight the wounded feelings, but rather to be very, very positive to our president, to our country, to Democrats, Republicans combined, because what he sees more clearly than maybe anybody in the world is the fact that we can't waste time on superfluous arguments. We have to see with a clear picture that evil is a face that's out there, but evil is also a finger that's poised over a nuclear option that will not be good for anyone in the freedom-loving world.
Colonel Harvey, I'm going to ask you to comment on this question in just a moment, but let me first get the Congressman's reaction to this. While this was all going on, a little bit before Benjamin Netanyahu actually took to the congressional stage, Iran called the president's 10-year nuclear demand unacceptable. They said it simply won't work, we won't go for it, we will continue to talk, but this is an absolute dead issue. What does this now send to the president and to the Congress as well, that what Benjamin Netanyahu is saying in many ways is correct? Iran simply does not want to deal.
Well, I think very clearly, in this case, for different reasons, Iran and Netanyahu agree. This is not an acceptable deal. And I hope that our president, our policymakers related to the president and this administration will hear that same message. And if indeed Iran says this is not an acceptable deal, we must go back to the drawing board and produce the deal that's right, and that is to restore sanctions, to make sure that we don't let them off, and in fact that Iran truly begins to believe that we will increase sanctions in order to secure the safety and the longevity of not only Israel, but the free world.
Colonel Harvey, what is your reaction to all this? Because certainly I would guess that those of you in the intelligence community, those of you in the military strategic community would have expected this. It certainly came at just the right time, I think, to make the Prime Minister's point.
Well, I think Tehran has a strategic objective in the region, and they did not want to wait 10 years for a breakout. They are more aggressive than I think this administration is willing to admit. And the administration has also been fairly naive in expecting change by this Tehran regime. All we have to do is look at the continuation of all their activities in the region. They have not changed, and what they're doing does not surprise me one bit.
Is it as simple to say, as some have opined, that the president's deal with Iran is a direct path to war? Colonel.
Well, I'm afraid that if we don't address this particular issue well and get a deal that everyone can accept, and we secure the interests of not only Tel Aviv but Riyadh and Ankara and others in the region, then we're going to wind up with an arms race. And if we ever have a conflict between Lebanon and Israel, then you're going to have Hamas involved, and Israeli deterrent capabilities will not matter as much because they will not be able to respond as well given Tehran's aggressive nature and the way they will back up both Hezbollah and Hamas in a low-grade, enduring conflict in that part of the world.
Congressman, here comes the big question I guess that the American people want to know. The Prime Minister has now spoken in front of Congress. He has stated his case very eloquently. And we have heard time and time again that Congress needs to get involved here to turn this deal back and make it work for America. What is your opinion? What do you think Congress will do now? What are the next steps to make something happen and make a change?
Well, I think we'll definitely push for continuation of the sanctions and probably an increase based upon what we're seeing Iran doing, continually lying to us and using their freedom that they get on occasion to bluff the rest of the world because of a lack of resolute leadership without moral clarity that we're having coming from our administration. I think this is exactly why John Boehner, who took a lot of heat for inviting the Prime Minister. This is exactly why John Boehner wanted the Prime Minister to speak to us, to get away from the political issues within this body and get down to the moral clarity that only one man, truly, in the world can present to us with clarity, with the morality of freedom, and with the unity that comes from two nations that have been joined together at the hip for many years. And we want that to continue. So I applaud the Speaker on this issue, that he remained firm in making sure that we had a voice that was contrary, yes, to what we're hearing from our administration, but is based upon fact and truth.
Colonel Harvey, I only got about 30 seconds left here before we take a break. Do you think further sanctions are really going to do any good?
I think they may do some good, but here's the key thing. The UN Security Resolution calls for the dismantling of their missile capabilities as well as rolling back their nuclear capabilities. We need to stick with that. Two, our allies and friends in the region all want a different kind of a deal. We need to check Iranian aggression in that part of the world, and we need to stick together. We need to look at both of those options with the UN.
Colonel Harvey, you have been nice enough to join us and stay with us. We're going to thank you very much for your expertise and for joining us. Congressman Walberg, if you would, please stand by a couple of moments because we've got a whole lot more to talk about here, and we're going to get your opinion on some of the other things that are going on in Washington. All right, okay. She sees herself as President of the United States, but in a whirlwind, there have been a number of stories swarming about Hillary Clinton that could lend irreparable damage to her aspirations. Emails and more when MidPoint continues.